Thank you, Nasser, for taking time from the olive harvest to come and join us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
So Zaytoun is the Arabic word for olives. This is our reason for forming a company, really, was to find market access here in the UK for Palestinian olive oil. We started in 2004 with this mission of supporting Palestinian farmers through ethics-driven trade, and 100% of our profits are reinvested into that mission. In 2004, Nasser Abufarha returned to Palestine from the States to set up Canaan Fair Trade and the Palestine Fair Trade Association, which Nasser will tell us about later in terms of why he founded these organizations and the impact they have made for a network of over 2,000 farming families. Canaan engage year-round with their farming communities. They're committed to long-term partnerships under fair trade principles that ensure transparency, direct payment, and fair prices with purchase guarantees. And these practices, year on year since 2004, have been part of growing rural resilience for Palestinian farmers, which is key in the face of decades worth of military occupation, climate change, and amplified this year under COVID-19. Behind Bridget, you can see the range of products. We have three great taste-winning products that we source from Canaan: the maftool, the fricassee, and the almonds. And then the jewel in our crown of our range of Palestinian products is the Palestinian olive oil. What we'd like to start with today is a video that Canaan have produced to give you a flavor of the Palestinian landscape and the work that Canaan do. This is a 5-minute video, and then we'll come back to hear from Nasser. So if you could share that video with us, Bridget.
The land of Canaan is where cultivation began, and then first settlement through cultivation, and then from there the whole alphabet developed and the culture as we know it. Anywhere you walk, you look through the landscape in the land of Canaan, you see the depth of the history, whether it's through the terraces, through the caves, through ruins, through old orchards that are present and given that are over 2,000 years old or 3,000 years old in their formation. That gives you the depth of that history and the depth of agriculture in this region. Our roots in this land is in the roots of every olive tree, it's in the roots of our community, our tales, our sense of place. It's in the parallels between our social concepts and the ecosystem itself. We're from here because we are part of here. The olive tree in Palestine is a majestic tree. For us, it's a symbol of our identity. Our identity as a people, not a political identity. This is the home of the olive tree. It's indigenous to the land, so are we. Farming goes beyond just producing food that we take from the land. To the farmers, it's a poetic experience. It's a passionate experience. They feel the land, they feel the trees, they feel life-giving activities that they do, and they feel the reciprocity from the land. we've done in Canaan is to make traditional farming viable economically. I wanted to build route to the market through fair trade so we can save the olive crop. In many ways, Palestinians have been denied a space in the world, in the political system. We are finding a way to belong to the world through this project. When I opened up the spaces for the farmers to be part of the modern community, to be part of the modern economy, and to exchange with it, that opened the space for farming to become a medium of expression. When I'm looking at the olive trees, their trunk, their presence, and their givenness, I see strength. I see capacity to live, capacity to sustain, to produce. The vegetations outlast us, but they stay in our community. So this is what we leave. We don't leave anything. Money is not what we leave. We leave a living thing. Those olive trees have survived through practices that are sound, and through a relationship. And to me, that's a treasure. This is what the world is looking for. Is a way of living that is real, a way of living that is harmonious with our nature, a way of living that we can be certain of a future, a way of living that is meaningful too.
Exactly.
We're missing all of that, and it's all here. غرسوا فأكلنا ونغرسوا فيأكلون. They past generations have planted, so we ate, and we plant, so the future generation will eat.
Wow, Nasser, you live in a beautiful place.
Sure is. It's like, I don't know what to say after all these epic images of Palestine. That says it all.
Well, we're passing over to you now to share with us some thoughts from this harvest and then your wider work.
Certainly. Thank you very much. Thank you, Heather, for introducing me. Thank you, Bridget, and thanks to Zaytoun for putting this webinar together in this beautiful time of the year, the olive harvest. It's our most special time, really, every year. We've been doing it for 15 years as a group, as a project, but every year we look forward to it just like it's a first time celebration, as if we are coming from London to Palestine every year. We like the olive harvest, and
it's a joyous time.
It's with a big anticipation. This year's harvest is a little bit short, simply because we've been lucky with 3 years of consistent rain. So we should have had a very strong harvest. We were banking on one. We had an excellent harvest last year with about 40,000 tons of olive oil for Palestine. And that was a record high. We haven't had anything close to that back in 2006, I think, and 2011 or something, or 10, something like that. And this last year was even topped that with 40,000 tons. But still, since we've had consistent rain over 3 years. We expected to have a very good harvest still, but unfortunately we had a heat wave when the olives were just baby after a couple of weeks after blossom, and that heat wave dropped a lot of the olives under the trees, and that's why we ended up with the light harvest. But since we had good rain, that light harvest means that the trees made them bigger because there are few olives on the tree, and the tree made them bigger. However, in some areas, it was really bad, the heat wave that came in May, and a lot of the olives were not there on the tree. So this year, the olive harvest in Palestine is concentrated in Jenin and Nablus, mainly in Jenin, and Salfit, Ramallah region is very low, and they didn't have a good harvest, scarce. So we're talking about maybe 10,000 tons, maybe 25% of last year, which is a very significant drop in the quantity. Quality is exceptionally high. The olives stayed healthy, and that even though sometimes when there is less olives, there is lesser quality, but this year there is less olives and exceptional quality. That's what that up for it.
Good to hear.
Yeah. Still, people believe, like, excited as always about the harvest and what it has to give. The social activities of the harvest are still the same. People are gathering as families and collecting the olives and bringing them to the press and taking some home and enjoying the fresh olive oil. The rituals and the social space that the olives occupy in our life is strong and big, and that continues with the olives that we have. So this year also, even though we have a short harvest. And by now, I was planning to show you actually some of our olive press and the pressing, but unfortunately, or fortunately actually, but we had good rain for the last 2 days, and the farmers couldn't go to the fields. And you probably know about, if you know a little bit about harvesting olives, we should press them daily. So we've been pressing for our farmers on a daily basis. So the farmers don't have olives for the last 2 days. They haven't been able to go to the fields because it's wet and it's raining. And today is raining, and we believe some through half of the day tomorrow. So we'll start pressing again on Saturday. So that's about the current state of affairs of the olive harvest. We will not have shortage for Zaytoun or of olives and olive oil. So your supply is reserved. As Heather mentioned, we work with 2,000 families, and out of the 2,000 families, we will always have enough supply for Zaytoun and for our friends and fans around the world. I'll give you a little bit of our history. As Heather mentioned, that we started around the same time as Zaytoun in 2004. In fact, I wasn't coming, I am a Palestinian American anthropologist. I was coming back to do an anthropological research in Palestine. I wasn't coming back to start BFTA or Canaan. But the situation was 2004 was just at the tail end of the second intifada. And the situation was so dire that the olive prices were plummeting to a level that a lot of farmers are not even collecting the olives. And there is a huge risk to the olive crop. And to me, that was, especially for somebody who's been writing about the symbolism of olives in our culture and the importance of olives and olive oil to our food system, to me, that was a huge thing to lose if we were to lose it from a cultural perspective, from a political perspective, from a food security and food perspective. So the idea of establishing route to market came to me when I came here, and I saw that there is need to be some way to help the Palestinian farmers sustain their lives and sustain their olive crops. The olive crop is being farmed by an estimated 100,000 families, and that's the most distributed crop in Palestine for the largest sector of Palestinian farmers or Palestinian society. 100,000 families, the olive crop makes a partial income, if not a full income for them. So losing it means a lot of loss of income for people, but also losing it would mean a loss of a source of food security, because all of our fats are from the olives and a lot of our dishes are with olive oil. So it was very important to establish a route to market, and I've chosen through fair trade because I knew about fair trade from USA, from Madison, Wisconsin. So I started building fair trade and organic cooperatives and raise awareness with the farmers to the fair trade standards and the movement and why and who are the players of the fair trade movement. And at the same time, I met Zaytoun from the UK. Heather and Kathy were coming down here to establish a similar track of helping the Palestinian farmers export olives, and the relationships started then, and we're still working together all these years to this day. Obviously, the whole idea was fair trade is about building sustainable partnerships, and we built those sustainable partnerships with Zaytoun and brought this to the farmers, and we've built multiple similar sustainable partnerships with other communities around the world, whether it's in the US, in Sweden, in Germany, in Japan, in Korea, over the years, and in Canada. I believe all the sustainable partnerships we started from 2004 to this day are only building up and have been real sustainable for us and our farmers. And through that, our farmers learned a lot. They learned of different view of the Western world, with different view of who Americans are, who British people are, who Germans are. They understood that there is no monolithic one way to view the West, as all are just supporting Israel or supporting the disposition or that they go through. That they found that they realize that they have friends. They realize that there are people who are willing to pay a price that allows for the sustainability of the agricultural activity and not a price that is hostage to the fluctuation of the market price. The whole idea of fair trade is to allow the small-scale farmers to survive under the conditions of modern economy that is mostly industrialized, industrial agriculture, or it's not agriculture, it's agribusiness, that is focusing on like bringing the prices down as much as possible, mostly at the expense of the farmers, or a lot of the times at the expense of actually alienating and losing the whole farming culture as communities, and turn it into plantations. So what we've done is, with the help of Zaytoun and other partners around the world, is find a space for the traditional farmer and the small-scale farmer in the modern economy, for them to support their lives and sustain their practices. So this has been the approach to access the market for the Palestinian farmers, and through the combination of fair trade certification and organic certification and diligent work to build these partnerships with like-minded people with similar missions around the world, we were able to uplift hundreds of families out of poverty, and we were able to support the livelihood directly of the farmers who are working with us, which is about 2,000 families. But above all, we were able to protect the whole olive crop. When we started, the olive oil was about €2 or less. And right now, the olive oil is above €5, about 5.5 to €6 to the farmers. And that is not only for the farmers we're working with. The way we design our purchases, our terms, and our activities in Palestine is thought of to impact the overall market. So we were able to raise the overall market of olive oil above sustainable level. In 2007, I think we brought it to the minimum, fair trade minimum, as a market. I'm not talking about our own activities. Our own activities have been, we drew a minimum price and we started with that minimum price that's supposed to be the sustainable minimum. But by 2007, we brought the market to the sustainable minimum. And I think since 2008 to date, the market has not gone down below 20 shekels, which is 1.5 times the going rate that was before we started. And this year we're paying 27 shekels, and we've been paying anywhere between 24 to 28 over the last few years. And the market has been above 20 shekels since 2008. So in effect, we raised the market price for the whole of Palestine, and that's the main accomplishment, because through that, in one way, we protected the olive crop, we protected the olive farmers to continue to support the olive crop and other farming activities, and we reinvigorated the olive practice, the farming practice, so that farmers are really increasing where they can the size of their farms. And we have multiple programs to help the farmers through Trees for Life, which Zaytoun has been supporting also for the last 4 years or so in bringing donations to Trees for Life through the Palestine Fair Trade Association, and helping the farmers increase their farms and expand their farms, helping new farmers grow olives. Growing olives have become palatable to the farmers and enjoyable. Enjoyable in the sense that there is a cultural connection with the world through it, and palatable economically because there is a return to it. There is a value return to it. And also locally, we've been through all these international activities around the olive crop and the olives and producing olive and producing videos, producing posts, social media, and so on. It has recaptured the imagination of the young, and there are people in the young, in the Palestinian youth that are now finding it cool to be in the olive crop, and to be in the harvest, to be in the olive culture as a whole. So, and this is our goal. And today, our goals have shifted a little bit, more than a little bit. I mean, the environment of the olive crop and working with the farmers, we realize that there is a little more than olives here. There is a little more than olive oil and olives. We find that the mere fact that our farmers are cultivating olive trees that exceed 1,000 years old and 2,000 years old, and these trees are living and have been feeding us for thousands of years, in an era when we have question marks about sustainability of planet Earth. We think there is a lot to learn from here, and there is a lot of cultural inheritance here among the farmers, with traditions that allow these farms, allow these trees to continue to give for thousands of years. There is a lot to cherish, and we find there is a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge and a lot of culture between the relationships between the land and the people, and between the people themselves, that allow these relationships to flourish. that is worthy of protecting, worthy of nurturing, to live and support, and worthy of us looking more deeper into it to learn from, for us and for the world as a whole. This is really, and that brings us to the theme of the video you just shared. What we have here is we have a food forest that is thousands of years old, beyond the history that we know, the history that starts from the biblical story. We've been here for thousands of years. We're 10,000 years history of agriculture. We have terraces that are over 5,000 years old. We have olive trees themselves that are 3,000 years old and more. We have varieties that have been planted and still giving, and still the best varieties for thousands of years. So this is a cultural inheritance that we've had, and our farmers are these cultural carriers of these traditions, and they still practice them. And we believe now our mission have moved into protecting and nurturing this ecosystem that has these vegetations, these trees, these farmers who are part and parcel, an integral part of this ecosystem. Because these trees, if they don't go through what the farmers call tishbib, shab is youth, and tishbib is making the tree youth again. Every few years, the farmers do aggressive pruning and they cut the tree to make the tree come back again as a new tree. And that's what allows the tree to live that long. And then you have old root, old trunk, and modern and fresh branches all the time. And the whole ecosystem that they are grown in the hillside, in the mountains, on terraces, all extensive farming. The terrain itself doesn't allow for intensive farming or big machineries to come in. And that's the environment that they cultivate with hands. So it's gonna be through artisan all of their lives and for future to come. And it's been artisan for thousands of years. And these vegetations that they grow, Palestine is a small place, has about 7,000 plant species. And that's about, there is about 3,500 plant species in North America as a continent. So in a very small space in Eastern Mediterranean, we have 7,000 plant species. And so this biodiversity, this sustainable, sound practices in the farm, rather than depleting. Right now we hear about depleted soil in California, depleted soil in this farm and that farm. We hear about plantations depleting the soil in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. We have 4,000 and 5,000 years that is enriching. And this is, in today's conversation, we see that a lot of the climate change has actually agriculture or agro-industry elements to it, with turning the soil from carbon absorbent to carbon radiant. All of these, we find in that all of these practices are at the heart of current and modern conversations. And here we are in the middle, in a situation where we have an ecosystem that is ancient and still living and thriving and producing, and a community that is finding life, finding self, finding meaning, finding identity in nurturing it. And so our goal is to help that space thrive and continue. The space, right now is not only threatened by modern agriculture, that's one part, and we are solving it through fair trade. We're solving a lot of it through fair trade and through partnerships with communities that understand the climate element and the ethical and the problems with our food source, with our food culture, in the modern world, and they are looking back at small-scale farming as an important part of going back to sustainable food production. But also we are in Palestine under occupation. Today, in this ecosystem, mostly in the stretch of the hills of the West Bank, and that's where settlements activities are growing and expanding every day. And not only are they expanding politically, but they are expanding also in the cultural realm and in the economic and into these ecological spaces. Today, just like Israel in the 1960s and 70s was bragging about its progressive and liberal tones through the kibbutz and moshavim as collective communities and working together, working with group and community ethics. A lot of it is true, but missing a major part of the story that there are communities that were destroyed to give this land to a collective to lease it for some years. And there is a dispossession that took place and displacement of the rightful owners and the owners of these lands that have thrived over the years. And what happened is that these kibbutzim now failed and being turned into plantations because there is not the real sustainable community element of it. And in the meantime, we lost a lot of the sustainable ecological setting of many farms in the Galilee and in northern Palestine. Today, a lot of the Israeli organic movement is being placed in the West Bank in our ecosystems of sustainable agriculture. It is true, the environment is clean, it's beautiful, it's organic, but if we're gonna just now send the settlers to become the organic movement of Israel and produce organically, quote unquote, organically from the West Bank as a progressive idea in Israel, that poses another threat to the ecology of our olive harvest and our olive trees and their sustainability. Recently, Israel has gained a Yehuda as a geographic indication for wine, and mainly organic wine. Yehuda here is a reference to Judea, what the Israeli term for the southern West Bank from Ramallah to Hebron. And they are trying to lay cultural claims to it, and obviously they want to support that with some activities at the expense of taking over some of our ecosystems into settlements. And they taking that cultural distinction that this is trying to attach cultural significance to Israeli history in the region and ignoring or overlooking the Canaanite origin of this land, and which we have tended these farms for longer than even the biblical history that we know. So this is at the heart of the struggle is building awareness to the long history of the sustainable agriculture Palestinians have had in the land of Canaan, and its viability to continue to produce, and this is where the wisdom is, and this is the cultural carrier of this knowledge, of this history, of this cultural heritage, and this is worthy of protecting and nurturing and supporting to live. because whether it's conscious or subconscious, these farmers have a lot of traditions in that they understand in the landscape, and we can understand it from them. As we go, provide extensions to the farmers, every time, literally every time, we come back with more knowledge than what we have given. Yes, we gain and we give. Why? Because the wisdom of the long buildup of knowledge over thousands of years is what's treasured here and what's informing their practices. And if we can, there is a lot of modern things that are coming to us. And like if you look at the Trees for Life, we still use the same cultivars that are old, some of the trees that are old, over 1,000 years old, the same cultivar we graft from these trees. And this is after our farmers have tried a lot of varieties being introduced in the 70s through Israel. They realize we have the best olive trees. Why change them? And we emphasize the same. So this is part of our work is nurturing what we have and learning from it and protecting it, and at the same time sharing it with you and with the whole world. And I'll end up here for this message, and hopefully we'll have some questions and answers to answer it.
Thank you so much, Nasser. I mean, so much rich content to cover within this session, and a lot to be learnt from Palestinian farmers. Really compounded by the very difficult situations that you're describing that they're living in. I think the reference you made to the health of the soil is really at the base of it. Without healthy soil, all of us are doomed. It's a global priority to learn how to look after the resources. We have quite a few questions. One of them really ties into what you're saying, actually. She is asking really about the market response just to the idea of Palestinian olive oil, that there's this perception maybe that olive oil is an Italian or a Greek product, and how you found the market reacting when you brought Palestinian olive oil to the export market.
Certainly, I mean, this is some of the work that we are doing is bringing awareness that really, I mean, if you come to Canaan, says Canaan Fair Trade, home of the olives. Palestine is home of the olives. And yes, right now in the market, there is Italian, olive oil is tied to Italian traditions, but in reality, Rome came to Eastern Mediterranean for the olive oil.
Yeah.
And so that's where it took it from. A lot of the Italian and Spanish varieties, Arbequina and others, are based on our Nabali, our olive tree, and the origin of the Nabali. Yes, the Italians do wonderful olive oil, but we have original olive oil that's a lot more complex in taste. And we bring that to the attention of the consumer, that we have the original variety, the original olives. We have our landscape, because the home of the olive tree, where it actually developed, our landscape is full of wild olive tree. And the wild olive tree actually great pollinators. The farmers keep them in the hillsides. They are not good oil makers. They make excellent oil, but the percentage of oil is not very good. But the pollination comes from them, also gives complexity to the taste profile of the olive tree. And we bring to the attention what I talked about, the mountain terrain, the mountainous terrain that is very rich biodiversity. When you have a very rich biodiversity, you have a lot more nutrients in the soil, and you have a lot more nutrients within the food system. So we're bringing these distinctions that this is coming from agriculture. Yes, there is similar in Italy, but a lot of the you find on the shelf are a lot of it is sometimes plantations, if you go to the boutique, you might find something from Tuscany, from smaller scale farming, or from Sicily, and these are still good olive oils. But I think we have a very taste-wise, very comparable, and even better if you are a really consumer of olive oil, you will appreciate the complexity of the taste offer that our olive oils have. That's in addition to what we talked about, the social value and the environmental value that comes from our olive oil.
Absolutely. I mean, we think it's the best tasting olive oil. And like you say, not really a comparable product, with everything in Palestine being, family-sized farms, picked by hand, using the environment responsibly is really not a product to compare with an industrial produced product.
Yes.
I'm just going to apologize to the attendees. I'm going to just read out the questions because I'm aware we've only got 5 minutes left, and just in the aim to get through as many questions as possible before we round up. We have a couple of people just asking about impacts of settler activity, chopping down trees or access to the groves, and how Canaan or people outside best support farmers to carry on their cultivation within this system of expanding settlements, and really a political vacuum internationally in terms of settlement activity or the actions of the people who live in those illegal settlements.
Sure, I mean, definitely in those areas in the central Palestine and Salfit/Ariel area, and where extensive settlement activities are taking place. People fear being in the olives all the time, like regularly, and that reduces their capacity to tend the olives the way they would love to, they would like to. And sometimes there is intimidation directly. What we can do for us, I mean, we cannot us ourselves face that, but what we can do is raise awareness to it and raise access to the farmers to you. And maybe you can do more in the international community about settlers activities and even state activities to enable settlers to be there in the first place. Things like this, geographic indicator of Yehuda as a certain place for, and who has that, the key to have those indicators is obviously Israeli regulators, and now they are producing products from our land with an indicator we don't have access to. Things like that, they shouldn't pass in the international arena, and that's so. I think there is already a movement to raise awareness to the fence and how it's intervened with people's lives. Our farmers in general, because we are in Jenin, Nablus area, are not in these areas. They don't come into interaction with settlers a lot, but I know in the south they have more interaction with settlers.
Thank you. We've got someone asking about where you are. As you just said, you're towards the north near Jenin.
We are in the north. We are in Jenin, which is the northern West Bank.
And as mentioned that did shared interest help you with growing the capacity of your facility?
Absolutely. Shared interest was in 2008 was the first financial institution to extend a loan to us.
Yeah. I'm aware that we
built our first facility with their loan. And
it's been so much. A tremendous volume of growth we've seen, and to give people a picture of where Nasser is. So below him is the olive press. Behind the Canaan factory is some olive groves where they would normally be hosting their harvest festival with thousands of farmers and their families. international customers. There's a kitchen set up there. So some of the communal aspects of Canaan's working, the coming together and eating and celebrating with customers, have been restricted this year. And we hope that those restrictions will lift and we can share them with you again in the future. We have not been able to answer all the questions, so we will follow up with people. Do feel free to keep in touch with Zaytoun and we'll answer the remaining questions. We've been asked about sharing your video that people really enjoyed. So really, I mean, we just want to thank you again, Nasser, for giving us this time, a bit of an insight into your work and the importance of olive agriculture. We want to say thank you to the 80 attendees who came, because as well as the inspiring supply chain with Canaan, we have an inspiring customer base who are very committed to sourcing Palestinian products and promoting the taste of them and the narratives behind these products. And for our communities here, as well as in Palestine, we're very invested in this relationship where we have shared values of working with farmers who have this great respect for their land, and who produce both delicious and sustaining products. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for hosting this webinar again. And we might actually have on the 21st, we will send you the information and to share with your community. We might have an internal celebration of the olive harvest and have it online. So maybe you guys can tune into it.
Okay, we would be delighted to join.
We'll be there.
Yes, we'll be there. We have a new product, just a quick mention, that's being bottled by Canaan in the coming week. They're fresh, raw, unfiltered olive oil that we look forward to sharing with all of you in the UK. It's a phenomenal taste. And if we can't be in Palestine dipping warm bread in the olive oil with you, we'll do our best to share it here.
Very good.
Thank you
very much.
Take care.